I was a kid, I was 19 years old, in New York City, and I was working for a boxing magazine, Prize Fight. Sports, I was doing, it was a small magazine. By the way, the name was Bang. Bang magazine. My first job in my life. And I typed out the sporting events for that week, the boxing results. And also, I did a portrait of a boxer of the week, charcoal drawing. And I was typing as a kid. And I'm sitting in a second floor hotel room with my boss. He was a crumb button from Chicago, and he became a small-time publisher. But it was my job, my first job. And a real sleazy crowd, really sleazy. The fight business in those days. Today it's respectable because you have all these promoters. In those days you had sleazy promoters like they are today. Nothing changes. Anyway, one afternoon, a little guy walks into the office. Short guy. White, big fedora hat, gray suit, gray hat, gray shirt, and a gray tie, and gray suede shoes. And he's talking to my boss, and I'm at the typewriter. And as he's leaving, he says, "The kid's got pimples, get him laid." In those days, if you had pimples, you had to get laid. So, my boss says there was a punch-drunk prize fighter sitting in the office reading comic books. An older guy who's been there, has been. And my boss says, his name is Izzy Singer. He said, "Here's $10, get the kid laid. Get him uptown, take him uptown." I didn't know what the hell was going on. It was a whorehouse, but in those days, it was respectable. It was in a nice building. So before I get there, I'll tell you a punchline. So the guy went out, and my boss says, "You know who he is?" He looked like a little guy. I forgot his name, son of a bitch. But you would know anyway. Jesus Christ, I got a mental block. Barney so-and-so, the most violent gangster in the city. Head of all the boxing. He was known as Mr. Gray. He always was. But he had an Italian name, Palermo, something like that. Most power, and he, right now, in all the books, in the news books, he's considered one of the most powerful gangsters in New York in the 1930s. Murderous. And here he tells me he got pimples, get him laid. So I was shy as a kid, and I walked, and this big prize fighter takes me by the hand. I knew where I was going, and I didn't want to go, and I wanted to go. Takes me down to the subway to go uptown. I'm standing on the subway platform with him, and I crap my pants.
Literally?
Yeah. What do you mean, literally? I shit. And I'm standing there, and I say, "What the hell am I going to do?" I'm the prize fighter, he doesn't know from nothing, this big hope. He's standing there, ready to take me up to the apartment. So I walk off the train with him. I go up to the apartment building, she opens the door to Madam, and she looks down at me, she says, "What the hell is this?" So Billy wants him to get laid, Billy wants him to be fixed up. I walk into the apartment. This is a little, because at that time I looked like a little kid. I was, yeah, little. So she says, come in. There were 3 girls sitting at the table, drinking wine, beer, whatever. And I said right away, is there a bathroom here? Like a schmuck. Every whorehouse has a bathroom. So she said, yeah, go inside. I go inside, and every whorehouse has towels. I take the towel, take my pants down, I clean the stuff, the towels. I open the bathroom window, and I throw it out the window. Little did I know, it was the window to the street, in front of the building. If someone looked up that day and said, I wonder if it's going to rain.
Well,
So anyway,
it would have.
That was the story. I went in and I had my first relationship with a woman. And the apartment room was a beautiful red wall, big bed apartment. And she was very kind. That's just cool.
How old were you?
Oh, we get down the elevator. The price card and me, we get out the door, and I look, and there, right in front of the fucking building, a towel full of shit. If anyone had looked up to see if it was going to rain, so that's a story.
How old were
It's
you?
a nice story. It's a nice story.
How old were you back then? At that
I
time?
was 19.
So were you like super nervous, you know? Was your heart like
Ah!
He shit himself.
Well, no, I mean like.
What question is that?
Screw my heart. My bowels. But it's a great story.
No, I have one more question. What does High Eisman think of that story?
What?
What does High Eisman think of that story?
He blushes. I is kind of a prude. No, that's a beautiful story. Because,
Is that going in your book?
yeah,
Nice.
I'm not going to go into the details.
Right.
But the point is, this gangster, Jesus Christ, what a reputation. Boy.
We met him.
And he comes from Naples.
Sometimes he orders a hit. Now
What
Beauty
the hell
ordered
is
a
it?
late.
He ordered the hit. It's funny. He's the one who ordered the hit on Bugsy Siegel. He ordered it.
So you met all those old fighters that you were drawing and stuff like that too, right, Larry?
Huh?
You met all these old fighters that you were drawing.
I know all the big ones. Really, Greg Joe Lewis I met.
Really?
I didn't know
This kid?
but I was introduced to him.
Wow. Did you see some fights?
Frankie Carbo. That was his name. Frankie Carbo. Ask your parents if they're in on that stuff. If they know who he is.
Did you go see any fights at all?
Oh yes, every week.
Really?
I had one hell of a time.
Did you bet? Never? But you knew people that did, though. You knew people that did. This is all the same thing, though, right? This is all. So it has to be a
So the next, when you start in, or if you haven't already, but today's world, you start in before you're 19. I think.
Who did penalty on this?